The fluorescent lights in the exam room buzzed too loud that morning. Dr. Emily Harris walked in holding my test results, and I knew something was wrong before she even opened her mouth. Her jaw was tight, her eyes wouldn't meet mine. "Abigail," she said quietly, "I need you to sit down." I was already sitting. She rotated her computer screen toward me, and my stomach dropped. Numbers, charts, medical terms I didn't fully understand, but I understood the look on her face. "These results..." She hesitated. Doctors aren't supposed to hesitate. "They show a condition that should have made pregnancy impossible." The words didn't land right away. They just hung there in the cold, sterile air between us. 7 years. 7 years of negative tests. 7 years of apologizing to my husband, Daniel, every single month. 7 years of blaming my own body. So, my voice came out smaller than I intended. It was never my fault. Dr. Harris didn't answer right away. She just kept staring at the screen like she was reading something she wished she couldn't see. "No," she said finally. "It wasn't." I should have felt relief, but all I felt was confusion. If my body had always been incapable, then why had every doctor, including Dr. Harris herself, told me to keep trying? Why had Daniel pushed so hard for treatments, for specialists, for hope? Dr. Harris leaned back in her chair. The leather creaked in the silence. She folded her hands on her desk, and I noticed her knuckles were white. "Abigail, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Her voice dropped lower. "Have you ever requested copies of your medical records?" "No," I said. "Why would I?" She exhaled slowly. "Because someone did." The buzzing of the lights seemed louder now. My pulse was in my ears. "What do you mean someone did?" Dr. Harris clicked her mouse a few times, scrolling through something on her screen. Her expression was unreadable, but her fingers trembled slightly. 5 years ago," she said carefully, "a request was submitted for a full copy of your medical history. It wasn't you. It was authorized under your insurance, but the request came from a different email address." I blinked. "I don't understand. Who would—" "It was your husband's work email." The room felt smaller, the walls pressed in. Daniel had requested my medical records? Why? And why hadn't he told me? "Maybe he was trying to help," I said weakly. "Maybe he wanted to understand what was wrong." Dr. Harris didn't look convinced. She tapped her pen against the desk, once, twice, 3 times. Then she set it down. "Abigail, there's something else." Her voice was barely above a whisper now. "Around that same time, someone used your insurance for prenatal care." My brain stuttered, trying to process that. "Prenatal care? That's impossible. I've never been pregnant." "I know," she paused, "but the claim was filed, and it wasn't flagged because the name on the appointment was different. The insurance holder, though..." She looked at me. "That was Daniel Cooper." I felt like I was underwater. Everything was muffled and slow and wrong. "Are you saying Daniel took someone else to a doctor using my insurance?" "I can't confirm all the details," Dr. Harris said. "HIPAA laws limit what I can access. But yes, that's what it looks like." I gripped the edge of the exam table. The paper crinkled under my fingers. My chest felt tight. Who was she? And why would Daniel hide something like that from me? Dr. Harris leaned forward. Her voice was softer now, almost apologetic. "Abigail, I debated whether to tell you this. For years, I debated. But when I saw these results today..." She gestured at the screen. "I couldn't stay silent anymore." "What do you mean, for years?" She hesitated again. And this time, I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. "Because 5 years ago, that woman didn't just come in for prenatal care," Dr. Harris said slowly. "She gave birth to a boy." The fluorescent lights buzzed. The air conditioning hummed. Somewhere down the hall, a door closed, and I sat there, frozen, as my entire world rearranged itself into something unrecognizable. Daniel had a child he never told me about, a child born while I was at home, crying over another negative pregnancy test, hating my own body for failing us. How many nights had I apologized to him? How many times had I said, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, maybe next month? And all that time, he already had a son. Does he know? I whispered. Does Daniel know about the boy? Dr. Harris's silence was answer enough. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but I stood. I needed air. I needed to think. I needed to not be in this room with its buzzing lights and terrible truths. Abigail, wait! Dr. Harris stood too. There's one more thing I need to verify before you leave. I turned back. My hand was already on the door handle. What? She looked at me for a long moment. Then she glanced down at the file on her desk, the one with my name on it, the one that supposedly contained my entire medical history. Your results today, she said quietly. They don't match your previous records. I stared at her. What does that mean? It means something was changed, and I need to figure out what. The hallway outside was too bright. The smell of disinfectant was too strong. I could hear a baby crying somewhere in the building, and it made my chest ache. Dr. Harris stepped closer. Her voice was urgent now. Abigail, I don't know what's happening yet, but I need you to promise me you'll be careful. Don't confront Daniel until we know more. Please. I nodded, but I wasn't really listening, because my mind was already racing ahead. To Daniel's office downtown. To his late-night work calls. To the business trips he took every year to Atlanta. How much of my marriage had been real, and how much of it had been a carefully constructed lie? Dr. Harris touched my arm gently. Abigail? She paused. There's something you're not supposed to know, but I think you need to hear it anyway. I looked at her, waiting. Come back tomorrow, she said, and bring any medical documents you have at home. We need to compare them to what's in the system. I walked out of Carolina Women's Health Center that morning, a different person than the one who'd walked in. Outside, the October air was crisp. Leaves skittered across the parking lot. The sky was that bright, cold blue that only comes in autumn. And I stood there, keys in hand, trying to remember how to breathe. Because somewhere in Charlotte, my husband was living a double life, and I was just starting to understand how deep his deception ran. I didn't go home. I drove to the parking lot of Park Road Shopping Center and just sat there with the engine off. My hands were still shaking. The October sun filtered through the windshield, but I felt cold. A child. Daniel had a child. I pulled out my phone and opened my calendar app, scrolled back. 5 years. What had been happening 5 years ago? My finger stopped on a date in March. Daniel's annual Financial Advisors Conference in Atlanta. He went every year. Always the same week. Always came back with the same story about networking and presentations and hotel coffee that tasted like burnt rubber. I scrolled further. April, May, June. June was when I'd started seeing a new fertility specialist, Dr. Patel. I remembered because Daniel had been so supportive, so encouraging. He'd held my hand in the waiting room and told me we'd figure it out together. Had he known then? Had he already known he had a son? My stomach turned. I bit down on my lip, hard enough to taste copper. How do you look someone in the eye and lie like that? How do you comfort your wife for struggling to conceive when you've already fathered a child with someone else? I opened my photos, scrolled back 5 years. There, a picture Daniel had sent me from Atlanta. Him in a hotel lobby, smiling, holding up a conference badge. The message underneath, missing you already, can't wait to come home. I zoomed in on the photo, looked at his face, tried to see the lie in it, but all I saw was my husband, the man I'd trusted for nearly a decade. The man I apparently didn't know at all. A text notification popped up on my screen. Daniel. Hey babe, running late tonight. Client meeting went long. Don't wait up. Love you. I stared at those 2 words. Love you. Did he? Had he ever? I didn't respond. I just sat there watching people walk in and out of the shopping center. Mothers with strollers, couples holding hands, normal people living normal lives. And I was sitting in a parking lot realizing my entire marriage might be a performance. My phone buzzed again. Not Daniel this time. Dr. Harris. Abigail, can you come back to the office? I found something. I was there in 12 minutes. Dr. Harris was waiting in her office, not the exam room. That felt significant somehow, more personal, more serious. She closed the door behind me and gestured to the chair across from her desk. I made some calls, she said, to colleagues, to the insurance company. I had to be careful. HIPAA regulations are strict, but I have friends who owe me favors. I sat down. My heart was hammering. The woman who used your insurance? Dr. Harris continued. Her name was Jessica Brennan. She listed Daniel as her spouse on the intake forms. Spouse. The word hit like a slap. That's fraud, I said. My voice sounded distant. That's insurance fraud. Yes, Dr. Harris said quietly. It is. Did you report it? She hesitated. Not yet, because I wanted to talk to you first, and because... She pulled a file from her drawer. There's more. Of course there was more. There was always more. She opened the file and slid a single page across the desk. It was a birth certificate. I could see the header. State of Georgia. Department of Public Health. The child's name is Ethan Brennan, Dr. Harris said. Born June 14th, 5 years ago. June 14th. I'd been at home that day. I remembered because it was the day after our 7th wedding anniversary. Daniel had taken me to Fahrenheit for dinner the night before. We'd laughed. We'd made promises about the future. And the next day, he'd had a son. How did you get this? I asked. Dr. Harris looked uncomfortable. A colleague in Atlanta. She works in family medicine. When I described the situation, she did some digging. She tapped the birth certificate. This shouldn't exist, not with your insurance attached to it, but it does. I picked up the paper. My hands were steadier now. Shock does that sometimes. It makes you cold, efficient. Father's name, Daniel Cooper. Mother's name, Jessica Brennan. Place of birth, Piedmont Atlanta Hospital. I set the paper down carefully. Does he know about the boy? Dr. Harris nodded. According to my colleague, Daniel was listed as an emergency contact. He was present at the birth. Present? He'd been there, in the delivery room, holding another woman's hand while she brought his child into the world. And then he'd come home to me and pretended everything was normal. Abigail, Dr. Harris's voice cut through the fog. I need you to stay calm. I almost laughed. Calm. What did calm even mean anymore? I am calm, I said. No, I mean it. Because what I'm about to tell you... She paused. It's going to sound impossible, but I need you to listen. I looked at her, waiting. When I pulled your records earlier, your full medical history going back 10 years, I noticed discrepancies. Small ones at first. Lab results that didn't quite line up with my notes. Dates that were slightly off. What kind of discrepancies? The kind that suggest your file was altered, recently, within the last 3 years. The office suddenly felt too small, the walls too close. Why would someone alter my medical records? Dr. Harris leaned forward. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. That's what I'm trying to figure out. But Abigail, your condition, the one that showed up on today's test, it shouldn't exist in your older records. But it does. Backdated. Like someone wanted you to believe you'd always been infertile. My mouth went dry. Are you saying Daniel changed my medical records? I'm saying someone with access to your insurance and personal information did. And the timeline matches his data request from 5 years ago. I thought about all the times Daniel had encouraged me to switch doctors, to try new specialists, to trust him when he said we just needed to keep trying. Had he been controlling the narrative this whole time? Making sure I stayed focused on my supposed failure so I wouldn't notice his? Why? My voice cracked. Why would he do that? Dr. Harris shook her head. I don't know, but I think you need to confront him carefully, and I think you need to bring someone with you when you do. An ambulance siren wailed somewhere in the distance. The sound grew louder, then faded. I stood up. My legs felt stronger now. Anger does that. It replaces shock with something sharper, something useful. I need copies of everything, I said. The birth certificate, the insurance claims, the record alterations, all of it. Dr. Harris nodded. I'll have them ready by tomorrow morning. No, I met her eyes. Tonight. I need them tonight. She studied my face for a moment, then she nodded again. Give me 2 hours. I walked out of her office with a clarity I hadn't felt in years, maybe ever, because I finally understood something important. I hadn't been failing at pregnancy. I'd been failing to see the truth, and Daniel had made sure of that. By the time I reached my car, the sun was setting. The sky was streaked with orange and pink, beautiful and indifferent. I sat behind the wheel and pulled up Daniel's text again. Don't wait up. Love you. This time I replied. We need to talk. Tonight. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. Is everything okay? I stared at the message. No, I thought. Nothing is okay. Nothing has been okay for 5 years. But I didn't type that. Instead, I wrote, just come home. And then I drove to our house in Plaza Midwood and waited. Because Dr. Harris was right, I needed answers. But first, I needed to look my husband in the eye and see if he could lie to me one more time. Daniel didn't come home. I waited until 9 o'clock. Then 9:30. Then 10. His office was in uptown Charlotte, a 15-minute drive from our house. But I took the long way. I needed time to think, to prepare myself for whatever I was about to find. The city lights blurred past my windows. Saturday night traffic was light. A few couples walking to dinner. Groups of friends laughing outside bars on Tryon Street. Everyone looked so normal, so unburdened. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. My knuckles went white. What was I even doing? Driving to his office like some paranoid wife in a bad movie. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe Dr. Harris had it wrong. No, I was done with maybes. The parking garage beneath Daniel's building was mostly empty. His silver Lexus was on the 3rd level, right where it always was. I parked 2 rows away and turned off my headlights, and I waited. The garage was cold. That hollow kind of cold that concrete and metal create. My breath fogged the windshield. I rubbed a clear spot with my sleeve and stared at Daniel's car. What was I expecting to see? What was I hoping for? Part of me, the part that still wanted to believe in the man I'd married, hoped he'd walk out alone. Get in his car. Drive home. Prove Dr. Harris wrong. But the other part of me, the part that had been growing louder all day, knew better. The elevator doors opened at 9:47. Daniel stepped out first. He was wearing the gray suit I'd picked out for him last Christmas, the one that made his eyes look darker. He was smiling at something, his phone pressed to his ear. Then he lowered the phone and reached back. A woman's hand took his. My heart stopped. She was younger than me, maybe early 30s. Dark hair pulled into a ponytail. She wore jeans and a burgundy sweater, the kind you'd wear on a casual weekend. Comfortable, familiar. And beside her, holding her other hand, was a little boy, 5 years old maybe, dark hair like hers. But his face, oh God, his face was Daniel's. The same strong jawline, the same deep-set eyes. Even the way he walked, that confident little stride, was pure Daniel Cooper. I couldn't breathe. Daniel said something I couldn't hear, and the woman laughed. The sound echoed off the concrete walls, light, easy. The laugh of someone who had nothing to hide. They walked toward Daniel's car, and I sank lower in my seat. My heart was hammering so hard I thought they'd hear it. The boy ran ahead, his shoes squeaking on the polished floor. "Dad, can we get ice cream?" Dad. The word sliced through me. Daniel scooped the boy up, lifted him onto his shoulders. The boy squealed with delight. "Only if you promise to brush your teeth extra good tonight." "I promise." The woman walked up beside them, and Daniel's free hand found hers again. Natural, automatic, the way mine used to. I should have driven away, should have left before they saw me, but I couldn't move. I could only watch as Daniel unlocked his car and helped the boy into the back seat. Could only watch as he kissed the woman's forehead while she smiled up at him. They looked like a family, a real family, and I was the ghost. I don't know what made me get out of the car. Anger, maybe, or something deeper than anger, something raw and desperate that needed to be seen. My door closing echoed through the garage. All three of them turned. Daniel's face went white. Actually, white. Like someone had drained all the blood from his body in an instant. "Abigail?" The woman looked confused. She glanced between Daniel and me, her smile fading. "Who?" But I was already walking toward them. My legs felt strange, numb, like they belonged to someone else. "Hi," I said. My voice sounded calm, too calm. "I'm Abigail Cooper, Daniel's wife." The woman stared at me, her hand went to her mouth. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Is it?" I looked at Daniel. He hadn't moved, hadn't said a word. "Because I have a marriage certificate that says otherwise." The boy climbed out of the car. He looked up at me with Daniel's eyes, curious and a little scared. "Who are you?" The woman pulled him close, protective. Her voice shook when she spoke. "Daniel." She was looking at him now, not me. "What is she talking about?" "Jessica." Jessica. So that was her name. The woman from the birth certificate. The woman who'd carried Daniel's child while I was at home wondering what was wrong with my body. "He told me you were dead." The words came out broken, desperate. Jessica's eyes were filling with tears. "He told me his wife died in a car accident 3 years ago. He showed me pictures of the funeral. She looked at me again, really looked at me, and I saw the exact moment she understood. "Oh my God, you're real." The parking garage wind rushed through the open levels, loud, cold, carrying the distant sound of traffic and voices from the street above. I wrapped my arms around myself, not from cold, from the need to hold something together before I shattered completely. "How long?" I asked Daniel. My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. "How long have you been lying to both of us?" He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Abigail, I can explain." "Did you tell her I was dead?" I stepped closer. "Did you actually show her fake funeral pictures?" Jessica made a sound, half sob, half gasp. She was shaking now, one hand still on the boy's shoulder. "Answer me." "Daniel." "Yes." His voice was barely audible. "Yes, I did." The admission hung there between us. Ugly, undeniable. Jessica turned to him. "We've been together for 6 years. 6 years, Daniel. We have a son together. I've been waiting for you to propose, because you said you needed time to heal from losing your wife, and she's—" Her voice broke. "She's alive. She's standing right here." 6 years. Not 5. 6. Which meant Daniel had been with her before their son was born. Which meant he'd been building this second life while our marriage was still intact. Happy. Or what I thought was happy. The boy started crying. Soft, confused little sobs that made my chest ache. Jessica picked him up, buried her face in his hair. "Ethan, baby, it's okay. It's okay. Ethan, just like the birth certificate said." I looked at Daniel, really looked at him, tried to find the man I'd loved in the stranger standing in front of me. Why? It was the only question that mattered. Why would you do this? He took a step toward me. I took a step back. "Don't." My voice cracked. "Don't come near me. Abigail, please. You don't understand. This isn't what it looks like. What it looks like? I almost laughed. Almost. It looks like you've been living a double life. It looks like you lied to me, and to her, and to that little boy who thinks you're just his dad, instead of a man who's been playing house in two different cities. Jessica was backing toward her own car now. A blue Honda parked 3 spaces down. She was shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. "Stay away from us," she said to Daniel. "Don't call me. Don't come to the house. We're done." Jessica. "Wait. We're done." She fumbled with her keys, got Ethan into the car seat. The boy was still crying, calling for his dad, and Jessica was crying too as she slammed the door and got behind the wheel. Daniel stood there, frozen, caught between us, between his 2 families, his 2 lives, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked small. Jessica's car screeched out of the garage. The sound echoed long after she was gone, leaving just Daniel and me in the cold concrete silence. "Abigail," his voice was pleading now. "Let me explain, please. This all started before we even met. You don't know everything." Before we met? What did that mean? But I couldn't ask, couldn't speak, because my throat was closing and my eyes were burning, and if I opened my mouth, I was going to scream. So I turned around, got back in my car, locked the doors. Daniel ran to my window, knocked on the glass. "Abigail, please, you don't know the whole truth." I started the engine. "This started before we even met," he shouted through the glass. "Before I knew who you were." I put the car in reverse, pulled away, watched him get smaller in my rearview mirror, and drove home through the crisp fall night with one question burning in my mind. What did he mean before he knew who I was? Daniel was already at the house when I pulled into the driveway. His car was parked crooked, half on the lawn. The front door stood open. Every light in the house was on. I sat in my car for a moment, engine still running, and considered just driving away. Going to a hotel, disappearing for a while until I could think clearly. But I was tired of running from the truth. I turned off the engine and went inside. Daniel was in the kitchen, pacing. His tie was loosened. His hair, usually so perfectly styled, stuck up in different directions like he'd been running his hands through it. He spun around when he heard me. "Abigail, thank God. We need to talk." "Now you want to talk?" I set my purse on the counter. My hands were surprisingly steady. "You didn't want to talk when you were building a whole separate family in secret." "It's not like that." "Then what is it like, Daniel?" I crossed my arms. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks pretty clear. You have a son. You've been with Jessica for 6 years. You told her I was dead. So please enlighten me. What am I missing?" He pulled out a chair from the kitchen table, sat down heavily, his shoulders slumped forward. "It started as a mistake," he said quietly. "I met Jessica at a conference. We had drinks. One thing led to another. I never meant for it to happen." "Which conference? The one in Atlanta?" He nodded, wouldn't look at me. "The one you go to every year?" Another nod. "So it wasn't just once. It was every year. For 6 years." "Yes." His voice was barely audible. I pulled out the chair across from him, sat down. The kitchen suddenly felt too bright, too exposed, like operating room lights before surgery. "When did you tell her I was dead?" "After Ethan was born. She wanted to get married. Wanted me to meet her parents. I panicked." "So you killed me off." I said it flatly, matter of fact. "You invented a car accident and funeral photos and a whole grieving widower story just so you wouldn't have to choose." "I know how it sounds." "Do you?" I leaned forward. "Because it sounds like you're a coward. It sounds like you wanted 2 lives and didn't care who you hurt to get them." Daniel flinched. Good. I wanted him to flinch. "I was going to end it," he said. "So many times. I was going to tell you. But then you started the fertility treatments, and you were so sad all the time. And I thought if I left you when you were already struggling..." "Don't." My voice cut through his excuse like a blade. "Don't you dare make this about protecting my feelings. You were protecting yourself." He stood up, started pacing again. The kitchen floor creaked under his weight. You don't understand the pressure I was under. Jessica threatening to tell you, my parents asking about grandchildren, work expecting me to perform like nothing was wrong. He turned to me. I was drowning, Abigail. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but I never stopped loving you. I laughed, actually laughed. It sounded wrong in the quiet kitchen. You love me? You've been lying to me for 6 years and you love me? Yes. Then who am I to you? I stood up too, faced him across the kitchen island. Am I the wife, or am I the cover story, the one you come home to because it looks good, because it's convenient? You're my wife, my real wife. Jessica was... Don't say it was a mistake. Mistakes don't last 6 years. Mistakes don't result in children. Mistakes don't involve buying houses. His face went pale. How did you... Pineville. I watched his expression crumble. You bought them a house in Pineville, didn't you? He didn't answer, didn't need to. How much? I asked. How much did you spend building a life with her while I was here clipping coupons and canceling date nights because we needed to save for fertility treatments? Abigail, how much? 240,000. His voice was hollow. It's a 3-bedroom in a good school district. I wanted Ethan to have a yard, stability. $240,000. I thought about all the times I'd asked about our savings, all the times Daniel had said we needed to be conservative, careful, smart. And he'd been funneling money into a house for his other family. Did I ever matter? The question came out as a whisper. I didn't mean for it to, but something inside me had broken, and the words just leaked out. In all these years, did I ever actually matter to you? Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Real tears, the kind I'd only seen once before when his father died. You mattered. You matter. Abigail, you're... He stopped, swallowed hard. You're the only real thing in all of this. Then why? Because I was scared. Of what? He looked at me for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. Something I couldn't quite read. Of what you'd find out. The kitchen felt colder suddenly. The hum of the refrigerator seemed louder. About Jessica? No, he shook his head. About you. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? Daniel walked to the counter, picked up his phone, unlocked it with shaking fingers, scrolled through something. I need you to understand, he said slowly, that everything I did, the lies, the deception, all of it, I thought I was protecting you. Protecting me from what? He turned the phone toward me. On the screen was a medical document, my name at the top. But the date was wrong. 3 years ago. A diagnosis I'd never seen before. What is this by... I took the phone from him, read the words, read them again because they didn't make sense. High-risk genetic markers, pregnancy complications, life-threatening if conception occurs. Where did you get this? My voice was shaking now. From Dr. Harris's office, 3 years ago. I had access to your patient portal because I helped you set it up, remember? You gave me the password. I did remember. He'd set up automatic bill pay for my medical expenses. I'd thought he was being helpful. This diagnosis, I said carefully, was never given to me. Dr. Harris never showed me this. Because I asked her not to. Daniel's voice was urgent now, desperate. I begged her not to tell you. I knew if you knew the risks, you'd want to try anyway. You'd risk your life for a baby. And I couldn't... His voice broke. I couldn't lose you. So, you altered my records? The pieces were clicking together, horribly. You made me think I was infertile so I'd stop trying? Yes, the admission hung between us. And Dr. Harris went along with this? No, she refused. So I found someone who would. A clinic administrator who owed me a favor. He modified your digital records. Made it look like you'd always had the infertility condition. I set the phone down carefully. My whole body was trembling. You committed medical fraud. You violated HIPAA laws. You manipulated my health care. I saved your life. You stole my choices. The words ripped out of me, louder than I intended, louder than I'd ever shouted at anyone. Daniel stepped back, startled. You stole 7 years of my life, I continued, quieter now, but no less fierce. 7 years of me hating my body, apologizing to you, feeling broken. And all of it was a lie you created. I was trying to protect. Stop saying that! I slammed my hand on the counter. The sound echoed through the house. You were trying to control me. There's a difference. A car horn blared from the street outside. Someone shouted something I couldn't make out. Normal neighborhood sounds. Normal Saturday night chaos. But nothing in this house was normal anymore. Daniel's phone buzzed. A text message lit up the screen where he'd left it on the counter. I saw the name before he could grab it. Jessica. The message preview showed, I need to know the truth. About everything. Call me. I looked at Daniel. He looked at the phone. Neither of us moved. How much does she know? I asked. About what? About the medical fraud. About why you really needed to keep me focused on infertility instead of asking questions. His face went even paler. She doesn't know anything about that. But she knows something. I was reading his expression now. Years of marriage had taught me his tells. What else haven't you told me, Daniel? Abigail, what else? He closed his eyes, took a breath. And when he opened them again, I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear. Pure, undiluted fear. This all started before we even met, he said quietly. Before I knew who you were. Before I understood what I was getting into. What does that mean? It means... He stopped. Shook his head. I need to show you something. But not here. Not tonight. You're too angry. Too hurt. You won't understand. Try me. Tomorrow, please. Give me until tomorrow to explain everything properly. And then you can decide what you want to do. I stared at him. This man I'd shared a bed with for nearly 10 years. This stranger. One condition, I said. Anything. You sleep somewhere else tonight. I don't care where. But you don't stay in this house. Daniel nodded slowly. Okay. He gathered his keys, his wallet, moved toward the door like a man walking to his own execution. At the threshold, he turned back. For what it's worth, he said, Iori, I really did love you. I still do. I know you don't believe that right now, but it's the truth. I didn't respond, just watched him leave, watched the door close. And then I was alone in our too-bright kitchen with more questions than answers, and a terrible suspicion growing in my chest. Because Daniel was right about one thing. I didn't understand, but I was going to. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's face in that parking garage, saw Jessica's tears, saw that little boy crying for his dad. By 6 a.m, I gave up trying. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, watched the sun come up over the Plaza Midwood rooftops, and I thought about what Daniel had said. This started before we even met. What did that mean? Had he known me before? Had we crossed paths somewhere I didn't remember? I pulled out my phone and opened my photo library, scrolled back to when Daniel and I first started dating, 9 years ago. We'd met at a friend's barbecue. He'd been charming, funny. A little awkward when he asked for my number. Or, at least, that's what I remembered. But now I wondered if any of it had been real. If that accidental meeting had been accidental at all. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Harris. I have the files you asked for. Can you come to the office early, before appointments start, 7:30? I was there by 7:15. The clinic was quiet. No patients yet. Just the cleaning crew, finishing up in the waiting room. Dr. Harris met me at the back entrance and led me to her office without a word. She looked like she hadn't slept either, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy bun instead of her usual, neat style. She closed the door and locked it. That detail felt important, ominous. I spent all night going through your records, she said, gesturing to the stacks of papers on her desk. Every single file from the last 10 years. Paper copies, digital backups, everything. I sat down. My heart was already racing. And Dr. Harris pulled a folder from the pile and opened it. Your infertility condition, the one that showed up on your recent test, it appears in your records starting exactly 3 years ago, May 7th. Okay. But before that, she flipped to an earlier page. Before May 7th, 3 years ago, all your tests were completely normal, healthy, no indication of any fertility issues whatsoever. The office felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. So, someone added the condition to my file, I said slowly. Made it look like I'd always had it. Not just added it, replaced it. Dr. Harris's voice was tight. Your original test results from 3 years ago showed perfectly normal reproductive function, but those results were deleted from the system and replaced with fabricated ones showing the infertility markers. I thought about Daniel, about his confession last night, about the clinic administrator who owed him a favor. Can you tell who did it? The digital trail leads to an administrator account, but that account was deactivated 2 years ago. The person who had access? She paused. He doesn't work here anymore. I made some calls. He moved to Florida, retired early. Daniel paid him off. It wasn't a question. Dr. Harris nodded anyway. I think so, and I think there's more. She pulled out another file. This one thicker, older. I went back further, to before you became my patient, to when you first moved to Charlotte. That was 11 years ago. I know, and your medical records from before that, from wherever you lived previously, they're incomplete, heavily redacted, like someone requested that certain information be removed. My mouth went dry. What kind of information? I don't know. The redactions are official, court-ordered, it looks like, but Abigail... She leaned forward. Court-ordered medical redactions are rare. They're usually only done in cases of witness protection or sealed adoption records, or what? Or when someone's identity has been legally changed. The fluorescent lights hummed. Rain had started outside. I could hear it pattering against the window. Soft, steady, the kind of October rain that meant winter was coming. Are you saying I'm not who I think I am? My voice sounded strange, detached. I'm saying your medical history has gaps that shouldn't exist, and those gaps were created intentionally by someone with legal authority. I stood up, walked to the window, watched the rain streak down the glass. Charlotte looked gray and cold in the early morning light. The clinic parking lot was empty except for a few staff cars. Everything looked normal, ordinary, but nothing was ordinary anymore. Who would do that, I asked. Who would have the authority to change my identity? I don't know, but I think Daniel knows. I turned back to face her. Why do you say that? Dr. Harris hesitated. Then she opened her desk drawer and pulled out one more file. This one was thin, just a few pages. Because 3 years ago, when those records were modified, there was a note attached to the request. She slid the file across the desk. It's heavily redacted, but you can still see the authorization signature. I picked up the file, opened it. Most of the page was blacked out. Official redaction marks, the kind you see in legal documents and government files. But at the bottom, partially visible, was a signature. D. Cooper. My hands started shaking. The file slipped from my fingers. Papers scattered across Dr. Harris's desk. He authorized the changes to my medical records, I whispered. 3 years ago, before I even knew there was a problem. Yes. Why would he do that? What was he protecting or hiding? Dr. Harris stood up, walked around the desk, put a hand on my shoulder. Abigail, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Her voice was low, urgent. I think you're in danger. From Daniel? I don't know, maybe, or maybe from whatever he's been trying to protect you from. She squeezed my shoulder. But these aren't normal lies. These aren't just about an affair or financial fraud. This is deeper, institutional, legal. Rain pounded harder against the window. The sound filled the small office. What should I do? Don't go home alone. Don't confront Daniel by yourself. And don't trust anything he tells you until we know more. I gathered the scattered papers, tried to put them back in order. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I need to know the truth, I said, about who I was before Charlotte, about why my records were sealed. I'm working on it. I have a friend who works in medical records at the state level. She's discreet. She owes me a favor. I'll see what she can find. How long will that take? A few days, maybe a week. Dr. Harris walked to the door, unlocked it. In the meantime, be careful. And Abigail? Yes? If Daniel tells you anything at all about your past, record it. We might need evidence later. I nodded, gathered my things, started toward the door. Abigail, wait. Dr. Harris's voice stopped me. There's one more thing about the genetic markers Daniel showed you, the high-risk pregnancy complications. What about them? I checked the original diagnostic codes. They don't match any standard medical classification I've ever seen, which means either they're so rare they're not in the normal database, or they're fake. Yes. So Daniel had lied about that too, the life-threatening condition, the reason he claimed he had to protect me. All of it was fabricated. A story designed to make me grateful for his deception instead of angry about it. I walked out of Dr. Harris's office and into the rain. My car was parked across the lot. By the time I reached it, I was soaked, hair plastered to my face, clothes clinging to my skin. I got inside and just sat there, rain drumming on the roof, windshield fogging up, and I cried. Not gentle tears, not quiet sobs. I cried the way you cry when something inside you breaks so completely you don't know if it can be fixed. I cried for the 7 years I spent blaming my body, for the woman in the parking garage who thought I was dead, for the little boy caught in the middle of his father's lies. But mostly, I cried for myself. Because somewhere along the way, I'd lost track of who I was. Let Daniel define me. Let his version of my story become the only version I knew. And now I had to figure out who I'd been before him, who I really was. My phone rang. Daniel. I stared at it. Let it ring. Let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. This time I answered. What? Abigail, where are you? His voice was frantic. I went by the house. You're not there. I'm out. We need to talk. I need to explain. You've had 9 years to explain, Daniel. I think I'm done listening. Please, just meet me, anywhere you want. I'll tell you everything. The whole truth this time. I wiped my eyes. Watched the rain blur the world outside. Fine. But not alone. I'm bringing someone. Who? That's not your concern. Inkwell Coffee. Noon. Don't be late. I hung up before he could respond. Then I called the one person I thought might actually tell me the truth. It rang 4 times before she answered. Jessica? Silence on the other end. Then, how did you get this number? It was in Daniel's phone. Listen, I know you don't want to talk to me, but we need to meet. Both of us. Because I think he's been lying to you about more than just me. More silence. What do you mean? I mean, I think our whole lives, yours and mine, were built on something bigger than an affair, and I think Daniel knows what it is. A long pause, then, Inkwell Coffee, noon, I'll be there. She hung up. I sat in the rain-soaked parking lot and wondered what I'd just set in motion. But I was done being careful. Done being protected. If Daniel wanted to explain, he could explain to both of us. and this time we'd know if he was lying. I went home to change clothes. The house felt different in the gray morning light, empty, like all the life had been sucked out of it overnight. I stood in the bedroom doorway. Our bed was still unmade. Daniel's pillow still had the indent from his head. His reading glasses sat on the nightstand like he'd be back any minute to pick them up. But he wouldn't be. Not really. Even if he came back, the man I'd married was gone. Maybe he'd never existed at all. I changed into jeans and a sweater, pulled my hair into a ponytail, and then I did something I'd never done before. I went into Daniel's home office. He'd always kept it locked, said he needed privacy for client files, confidentiality requirements. I'd never questioned it, never had a reason to, but I had a reason now. The door wasn't locked. Maybe he'd left in too much of a hurry last night. Or maybe after everything that had happened, locks didn't matter anymore. The office was exactly how I'd imagined it. Neat, professional. A large oak desk, filing cabinets, bookshelves lined with financial planning guides and tax code manuals. I sat down at his desk and opened his laptop. Password protected. Of course. I tried our anniversary date. Wrong. His birthday. Wrong. My birthday. Wrong. Then, on a hunch, I tried Ethan's birthday, June 14th. The laptop unlocked. My stomach turned. He'd used his son's birthday, the child I wasn't supposed to know about, the secret he'd protected for 5 years. I opened his email first, scrolled through. Most of it was work-related, client meetings, investment reports, nothing unusual. But then I found a folder labeled Personal Archive. Inside were emails dating back 6 years. Messages between Daniel and Jessica. Sweet messages at first. Then practical ones about doctor appointments and baby supplies. Then increasingly desperate ones from Jessica asking when he was going to leave me. I read every single one. Each message felt like a small cut. Death by 1,000 paper slices. There was one from 4 years ago that made me stop breathing. Daniel, I'm worried about her finding out. What if she hires a private investigator? What if she finds the house? You need to tell me the truth about your wife. Why did you really marry her? You said it was complicated. I need to know what that means. Daniel's response. I can't explain over email. Trust me. Everything I'm doing is to protect both of you. When the time is right, I'll tell you everything. I promise. Protect both of you. What did that mean? I closed the email and opened his file browser. Searched for financial documents. Found a folder labeled Insurance and Medical. Inside were dozens of files. Claim forms, billing statements, authorization letters. And there, buried 3 folders deep, was a PDF titled AB Medical Authorization 2022. I opened it. It was a consent form, my signature at the bottom, authorizing the release of my complete medical history to Daniel Cooper for family planning purposes. Except I'd never signed it. I zoomed in on the signature. It looked like mine. The loop of the A, the way the Al in Abigail, connected to the next letter. Someone had studied my handwriting, practiced it, forged it convincingly enough to fool a medical administrator. My hands were shaking now. I saved the file to a USB drive I found in his desk drawer. Then I kept searching. Bank statements, mortgage documents, investment portfolios. Daniel had been meticulous about keeping records. Too meticulous, maybe. Because in a folder labeled estate planning, I found something that made no sense. A deed. For a property in Cornelius, a lake house, purchased 8 years ago. Before Daniel and I were married. The buyer's name, Abigail Marie Brennan. Not Cooper, Brennan, Jessica's last name. Why did Daniel own property in my name, but with Jessica's surname? Why would he do that unless... My phone buzzed. A reminder, Inkwell coffee, 1 hour, I needed to move faster. I pulled open the desk drawers, pens, notepads, business cards. Nothing unusual until I reached the bottom drawer. It was locked. I searched the desk for a key. Nothing. Checked the obvious places, under the desk mat, taped to the underside of drawers. Nothing. Then I remembered Daniel's keychain. He kept it in a ceramic bowl by the front door. Extra keys for the house, the garage, his office at work. I ran downstairs, grabbed the keychain, ran back up. The fourth key I tried opened the drawer. Inside was a small fireproof safe. The kind you keep important documents in: birth certificates, social security cards, passports. It had a combination lock, 4 digits. I tried our anniversary again. Nothing. His birthday. Nothing. Then I tried something different. Not a date. Not a birthday. I tried the last 4 digits of my social security number. The safe clicked open. Inside were 3 manila envelopes. The first contained Jessica's son's birth certificate, original copy. Ethan Michael Brennan. Father, Daniel James Cooper. The second contained insurance policies. Life insurance on me, $2 million. Daniel listed as sole beneficiary, dated 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Right when my medical records were altered. Right when the infertility condition mysteriously appeared in my file. My chest felt tight. The room felt smaller. The third envelope was thicker. Heavier. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were legal documents, court records, pages and pages of them, some so old they were yellowing at the edges. I flipped to the first page. State of North Carolina, Superior Court, petition for name change. Filed 11 years ago. Petitioner, Sarah Elizabeth Brennan. Requested new name, Abigail Marie Brennan. I stared at the name, read it again. Again, Sarah Elizabeth Brennan. That wasn't me. I'd always been Abigail, my whole life, since birth. I had baby pictures labeled Abigail, school records, everything. Didn't I? I flipped through more pages, found another document, an adoption decree, sealed by court order. Child, Sarah Elizabeth Brennan, born September 3rd, 1992. Adoptive parents, Margaret and Robert Brennan. My parents. Those were my parents' names. But Sarah? I didn't understand. None of this made sense. There was a handwritten note clipped to the adoption papers. The ink was faded, but still legible. Daniel, this is what I found. The records were sealed for a reason. If she ever learns the truth about who she really is, it could destroy everything. We agreed to keep her safe. Don't forget what's at stake. MB Margaret Brennan, my mother. My mother knew. She knew something about me. Something Daniel knew. Something important enough to seal court records over. Footsteps on the stairs. I froze. Heavy footsteps, moving fast, coming toward the office. Daniel was home. I shoved the documents back into the envelope, closed the safe, slammed the drawer shut, but it wouldn't close all the way because I'd locked it, and now the key was... The office door swung open. Daniel stood in the doorway. His face was flushed like he'd been running. His eyes went immediately to the open laptop, then to the safe key in my hand, then to my face. Abigail. His voice was carefully controlled. What are you doing? I stood, up. The envelope fell from my lap, papers scattered across the floor. Daniel's eyes tracked them, saw the adoption decree, saw the name change petition. His face went white. You weren't supposed to see those, he said quietly. Who is Sarah Brennan? My voice was steadier than I felt. And why does my mother have the same last name as your girlfriend? Daniel stepped into the room, closed the door behind him, and for the first time since I'd known him, I was afraid of my own husband. I can explain, he said, but you need to sit down. I'm not sitting down. I'm not doing anything until you tell me the truth. I held up the adoption papers. Who am I, Daniel? Who am I really? He looked at me for a long moment. Something in his expression shifted. Resignation, maybe. Or relief. You're Jessica's sister, he said. The words hung in the air. I heard them, understood the individual words, but together they made no sense. What? Jessica Brennan is your biological sister. You were adopted as an infant, given a new name, new identity. Your birth name was Sarah. Jessica doesn't know. She's never known. Your parents, your adoptive parents, they made sure the records were sealed. And when I found out, He stopped, swallowed hard. I made it my life's mission to keep you from ever finding out. The floor felt unsteady beneath my feet. The walls were moving. Everything was moving. You're lying. I'm not. And Abigail, he took a step closer. If Jessica finds out you're her sister, if she puts together what that means, everything we've built will collapse. Not just our marriage, her life, too, Ethan's life, everyone's. I backed toward the window, needed air, needed space. I don't believe you. Then call your mother, ask her about Sarah Brennan, ask her why she and Margaret Brennan share the same maiden name. Ask her why you've never met any of your extended family. My phone was in my pocket. I could call, could verify, but I didn't move. Because deep down, somewhere in the part of me that had always felt like something was missing, I knew he was telling the truth. The note, I whispered. The one that said to keep me safe. What was my mother keeping me safe from? Daniel's jaw tightened. That's a conversation for another time. No. I was shaking now, anger replacing shock. You don't get to decide that anymore. Tell me, now. He met my eyes. Jessica's father, he said slowly, is the reason your parents had to hide you. And he's the reason I can never let the truth come out. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Jessica's name lit up the screen. Are you going to answer that? Daniel asked quietly. I looked at him, at this man who'd orchestrated my entire life without my knowledge, and I answered. Jessica, I'm on my way, and I have questions. A lot of questions. Daniel's face fell. Abigail, don't... I walked past him, out of the office, down the stairs. Abigail, please, you don't understand what you're doing. But I did understand. Finally, I understood that nothing in my life had ever been mine. Not my name, not my marriage, not even my own identity, and it was time to take it back. Inkwell Coffee was crowded for a Monday afternoon. Students with laptops, freelancers taking calls, couples sharing pastries. The kind of normal, everyday Charlotte scene that felt surreal given what I was about to do. I arrived first, found a table in the back corner, ordered black coffee I wouldn't drink. Jessica arrived 10 minutes later. She looked different in daylight, smaller somehow, vulnerable. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying. She wore the same burgundy sweater from the parking garage, and I wondered if she'd slept in it. We stared at each other for a long moment. I don't know how to do this, she said finally. Me neither. She sat down across from me, set her purse on the floor. Her hands were shaking. I keep thinking this is a nightmare, she said quietly. That I'll wake up and everything will be normal again. Daniel will be who I thought he was. You'll be dead like he said. And Ethan will still have a father who doesn't lie about everything. I wanted to hate her. This woman who'd shared my husband, who'd had his child, who'd lived in a house he bought while I clipped coupons. But looking at her now, I just felt tired. He told me something this morning, I said. Something I need to know if it's true. Jessica looked up, waiting. What was your mother's name? She blinked, confused by the question. Margaret Brennan. Why? My chest tightened, so that part was real. And your father? Her expression changed, closed off. I don't talk about my father. I need to know, Jessica. Please. Why does it matter? Because... I stopped. How did I say this? Because Daniel told me you and I are sisters. Jessica stared at me. Her face went through several expressions. Confusion, disbelief, then something that looked like recognition. That's insane, she said. But her voice wavered. Is it? Your mother was Margaret Brennan. My adoptive mother's maiden name was Margaret Brennan. We're the same age. Both adopted as infants. I leaned forward. Daniel found out somehow. And that's why he's been keeping us apart. Why he lied to both of us. Jessica's hands had stopped shaking. Now they were gripping the edge of the table. I have a sister, she whispered. I've always had a sister. My mother told me once when I was little. She said I had a sister who was taken away, given to a good family, safe, but she never told me more than that. Taken away, safe. Those words echoed what Daniel had said, about my parents keeping me safe, about Jessica's father being the reason. Who is he? I asked. Your father. Jessica's jaw tightened. A man who should be in prison. A man my mother finally escaped when I was 8. A man who... She stopped, closed her eyes. A man who hurt people. The coffee shop noise faded. All I could hear was my own heartbeat. What's his name? Michael Brennan. He went by different names sometimes, different aliases. He was involved in things, bad things, financial crimes, fraud. My mother testified against him when I was little. That's how she finally got away. But he has connections, people who... Jessica opened her eyes. People who could hurt us if they were or if they wanted to. The pieces were clicking into place. The sealed adoption records, the name change, the elaborate protection. My parents hadn't just been hiding me. They'd been hiding me from him. Does he know about me? I asked. I don't know. My mother never said. She just told me my sister was safe, that I should never look for her, that it was better for both of us if we stayed apart. The door chimed. Daniel walked in. He looked terrible. Rumpled suit, unshaven, eyes bloodshot like he'd been up all night. He saw us sitting together and stopped. For a moment, I thought he might turn around and leave, but he didn't. He walked to our table and pulled out a chair. You told her, he said to me. Yes. He nodded slowly, sat down, looked at Jessica. I'm sorry, for all of it, for lying, for building this mess. Why? Jessica's voice cut through his apology. Why did you start this? If you knew we were sisters, why did you get involved with me at all? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said something I didn't expect. Because I was hired to... The words hung there. What? I said. 10 years ago, I was working for a private security firm, side work, investigating backgrounds for high net worth clients. One of my assignments was to locate and monitor the daughters of Michael Brennan. Make sure they were safe. Make sure he couldn't find them. He looked at me. I found you first, Abigail, or Sarah, whatever you want to be called. You were living in Asheville, working at a bookstore, happy, normal. I reported back that you were fine, safe, low profile. And then, my voice was barely above a whisper. And then, I was told to find the other daughter, Jessica. I tracked her to Atlanta. She was struggling, working 2 jobs, barely getting by, and He stopped, swallowed hard. I made a mistake. I got too close. I wasn't supposed to make contact, but I did. At that conference, that first night. Jessica's face had gone pale. Our entire relationship started as surveillance? Yes, but it became real. What I felt for you, what I still feel, that's real. Daniel's voice cracked. I fell in love with you, and then I fell in love with Abigail too, and I couldn't choose. Couldn't give either of you up. So I built 2 lives and told myself I was protecting you both. I thought I'd be angry, furious, but all I felt was a strange, cold clarity. Who hired you? I asked. Daniel hesitated. Who hired you to watch us? Your mother, Margaret Brennan, Jessica's mother. She was terrified Michael would find you both. She paid me to make sure you stayed hidden. Safe. Jessica made a sound, half laugh, half sob. My mother hired you to protect my sister, and you ended up sleeping with both of us. I know how it sounds. Do you? I leaned forward. Because it sounds like you took a job to protect 2 vulnerable women and turned it into your own personal fantasy. 2 wives. 2 lives. All while convincing yourself it was noble. Daniel flinched. The medical records, I continued. The fake infertility diagnosis. That was about control, wasn't it? keeping me focused on something else so I wouldn't ask questions, so I wouldn't go digging into my past. No, that was. He stopped, started again. There was a real risk. If you got pregnant, if your name showed up on medical databases, Michael's people could have tracked you. I had to make sure you didn't. You stole my choices. The words came out quiet, fierce. You decided what I could handle, what was safe, what truth I deserved, and you called it protection. Jessica was crying now, silent tears running down her face. Ethan, she whispered. Does Michael know about Ethan? Daniel's silence was answer enough. Oh God. Jessica covered her face with her hands. My son could be. He doesn't know, Daniel said quickly. I've made sure. I've been monitoring. Michael's still in prison. Federal charges. He won't be out for another 15 years. But his people, Jessica said. You said he has people. They don't know. As far as anyone's concerned, Ethan's father is just some guy named Daniel Cooper. There's no connection to either of you. I thought about the house in Pineville, the life insurance policies, the careful separation of our worlds. You've been keeping us apart on purpose, I said, making sure Jessica and I never met, never figured it out. Yes. Because if we did, we might go public, might connect our stories, might draw attention. Yes. And if Michael's people found out he had 2 daughters living in Charlotte, both connected to the same man, they'd have leverage, blackmail material, ways to get to him or get him out or whatever it is criminals do. Daniel nodded miserably. I sat back. Looked at this man I'd married. This man who'd orchestrated our entire lives around a secret he thought he was protecting. Here's what I don't understand, I said quietly. If you were really trying to protect us, why not just tell us the truth? Why not let us decide how to handle it? Because I was afraid you'd leave, both of you. And his voice broke completely. I couldn't lose you, either of you. I know that makes me selfish, cowardly, but I loved you both, and I thought I could keep everyone safe and together if I just controlled enough variables. Jessica stood up, chair scraping loud against the floor. I need air. She walked out without looking back. I watched her go. Then I looked at Daniel. The medical fraud, I said. The fake diagnosis. Was any of it real? Or was it all just a way to control me? There was a genetic marker, a real one, but not what I told you. It wasn't life-threatening. It was just... He paused. It was a marker that linked you to the Brennan family. If you'd had genetic testing done for pregnancy, it would have shown up, and you might have started asking questions. So even the protection was a lie, a partial truth wrapped around control. You stole 7 years of my life, I said. Made me think I was broken, made me apologize for failing when I wasn't failing at all. I know. And you think because you were protecting me from some distant threat, that makes it okay? No. Daniel met my eyes. I don't think anything I did was okay. I think I'm a coward who tried to play God with 2 women's lives. And I think I destroyed everything I was trying to save. We sat in silence. The coffee shop buzzed around us, normal people having normal days. And I realized something. I didn't hate him. I just didn't know him. Maybe I never had. I want a divorce, I said. Daniel nodded slowly. Okay. And I want every document, every file, every piece of information about who I really am. No more protection, no more lies. Okay. And Daniel, I stood up. Stay away from both of us. Whatever you were hired to do, whatever job you think you still have, it's over. We'll protect ourselves now. I walked toward the door, stopped, turned back. One more thing. What condition was I supposed to have? The real one, not the lie you told me. Daniel looked at me with something that might have been regret, might have been grief. You don't have any condition. Abigail, you never did. You're perfectly healthy, capable of having children. Everything I told you was designed to keep you from finding that out. Because if you'd had a baby, his voice dropped, you might have wanted to tell your family, might have reached out to relatives you didn't know existed, might have unraveled everything. So there it was, the final truth. I wasn't broken, never had been, just controlled by a man who thought he was saving me. I walked out of Inkwell Coffee into the November afternoon. The air was cold, clean, the kind of cold that makes you feel alive. Jessica was standing by her car, smoking a cigarette with shaking hands. I didn't know you smoked, I said. I don't. Haven't in 6 years. But today seemed like a good day to start again. I leaned against her car. We stood there in silence. What do we do now? She asked finally. I don't know. File restraining orders. Get lawyers. Figure out who we are when we're not who he made us. Jessica took another drag, exhaled slowly. I have a sister, she said, wonder in her voice. Yeah, you do? She looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw it. The family resemblance. Same cheekbones, same shape of eyes. How had I not seen it before? Want to get to know each other? She asked. The real versions, not the ones Daniel created. I smiled. First real smile in days. Yeah, I'd like that. 3 weeks later, I sat in Dr. Harris's exam room again. Same fluorescent lights, same sterile smell, same blue paper covering the exam table that crinkled when I shifted my weight. But I wasn't the same person who'd sat here before. Dr. Harris walked in with a file folder and a cautious smile. How are you holding up? She asked. Better than I expected, worse than I'd like. I managed a small smile. Somewhere in between. She sat down across from me, not at her computer this time, just in the chair, like we were having coffee instead of a medical consultation. I spoke with the specialist I referred you to, Dr. Chen at Carolina Medical Center. She reviewed all your records, the real ones, not the ones Daniel manipulated. I held my breath. Abigail, there's nothing wrong with you. You're perfectly healthy. No fertility issues, no genetic conditions, no risk factors. Everything Daniel told you was fabricated. I'd known this intellectually. Daniel had admitted it. But hearing it from Dr. Harris made it real in a different way. So I could have... I stopped. Started again. 7 years. I could have had children. Yes. I closed my eyes, felt the weight of those lost years settle over me like a blanket, heavy, suffocating. Then I took a breath and let it go, because holding on to it wouldn't give me those years back. It would just make the next ones harder. Thank you, I said quietly, for telling me the truth, for fighting to get these records corrected. Dr. Harris reached across and squeezed my hand. I should have fought harder 3 years ago, when I first suspected something was wrong. I'm sorry I didn't. You're fighting now. That's what matters. She pulled her hand back and opened the file folder. I have the corrected medical records here. Clean copies, legally authenticated. If you decide you want to pursue charges against Daniel for the fraud, I don't. I'd made that decision already. I just want it documented in case his lies follow me somehow. Dr. Harris nodded and handed me the folder. Inside was my real medical history, complete, unaltered. The story of my body as it actually was, not as Daniel had rewritten it. I ran my finger along the edge of the papers. This evidence of truth felt fragile somehow, like it could disappear if I wasn't careful. What about Jessica? Dr. Harris asked. How is she doing? Better. We've been meeting for coffee, talking, learning about each other. I smiled thinking about it. She's funny, sarcastic, nothing like I expected. And Ethan is sweet, shy. He drew me a picture last week of our family, all of us together. That must be complicated. It is, but it's also good, real. For the first time in my life, I have family that knows the truth about who I am. All of it. The adoption, the name change, the whole messy story. Dr. Harris tilted her head. Have you decided what to do about your name? Are you keeping Abigail or going back to Sarah? I'd thought about this a lot over the past 3 weeks. Sarah felt like a stranger, a ghost from a past I couldn't remember. But Abigail felt like a costume Daniel had helped me wear. I'm keeping Abigail, I said finally. But not because Daniel gave it to me, because I'm choosing it. It's who I became, who I want to be going forward. I think that's wise. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the kind of silence that only exists between people who've been through something together. There's one more thing I wanted to tell you, Dr. Harris said carefully. Your mother, Margaret Brennan, she called me last week. My stomach tightened. Jessica's mother? Your mother, too, biologically. Dr. Harris paused. She wants to meet you. She says she's been watching from a distance for years, making sure you were safe. And now that everything's out in the open, she'd like a chance to explain, to apologize. I thought about the woman who'd given birth to me, who'd given me a way to keep me safe from a dangerous man, who'd paid Daniel to watch over both her daughters without either of us knowing. Did I want to meet her? Did I want to hear her story? I'll think about it, I said. Dr. Harris nodded. Take your time. She's not going anywhere. I stood up, gathered my things. The medical folder felt heavier than it should. Abigail? Dr. Harris stood too. I'm proud of you, the way you've handled all of this. The strength it takes to rebuild after everything you believed turns out to be constructed, that's rare. I didn't have a choice. We always have a choice. You could have crumbled, hidden, let the lies define you, but you didn't. You chose to face it, to reclaim yourself. That takes courage. I felt tears prickling at my eyes, but blinked them back. Thank you for everything. I walked out of the exam room, through the waiting area where other women sat with their own stories, their own struggles, past the front desk where the receptionist smiled and said, "Have a good day, Ms. Cooper." Cooper. I'd need to change that too. Go back to my adoptive parents' name. Or maybe choose something new entirely. The possibilities felt overwhelming and liberating at the same time. Outside, the November sky was gray but bright. That particular kind of Carolina winter day where the cold feels clean, fresh, like the world scrubbed itself overnight and started over. I sat in my car and called Jessica. Hey, she answered. How'd it go with Dr. Harris? Good. Everything's documented. Official. I'm officially not broken. You were never broken, Abigail. Hearing her say it made something in my chest loosen. Want to grab lunch? I asked. My treat. Can't. I have Ethan. But you could come over? I'm making grilled cheese. Nothing fancy. Perfect. I'll bring dessert. I stopped at the bakery on the way, got chocolate chip cookies, the kind that were too big and too sweet and absolutely perfect. Jessica's house in Pineville was modest, a small ranch with a fenced yard, toys scattered on the front porch, a home built on lies but filled with real love anyway. Ethan ran to greet me at the door. Aunt Abigail, did you bring the cookies? Aunt Abigail, the title still felt strange, new, but good. I did, but you have to eat lunch first. He groaned dramatically, but ran back inside. Jessica stood in the doorway, smiling. He's been asking about you all morning. Yeah? Yeah. He wants to know if you'll come to his birthday party next month, if you'll be his real aunt, not just, she paused, not just someone his dad lied about. I followed her inside. The house smelled like melted butter and bread. Normal, safe. I'll be there, I said. Of course I'll be there. We ate lunch at her small kitchen table. Grilled cheese cut into triangles, apple slices, milk for Ethan, coffee for us, and we talked about small things, about Ethan's upcoming school play, about Jessica's new job at a marketing firm, about my plans to go back to school, Maybe study something I'd always wanted to but never had time for. We didn't talk about Daniel. He'd become background noise in our lives. A problem to handle through lawyers and custody agreements, and eventually, hopefully, distance. After lunch, Ethan went to play in his room. Jessica and I sat on her back porch. The November wind was cold, but we wrapped ourselves in blankets and stayed anyway. I talked to Mom, Jessica said quietly. Our mom, Margaret. Dr. Harris said she wants to meet me. She does. She's terrified you'll hate her, that you'll blame her for everything. I watched the trees sway in Jessica's backyard, bare branches against gray sky. Do you blame her? I asked. Jessica was quiet for a long time. I used to, when I was younger and didn't understand. But now I'm a mother, and I understand making impossible choices to protect your child, even if those choices hurt. She gave me away. She gave you a chance, a life away from him, away from the violence and fear. She gave you safety. I thought about my adoptive parents, the ones who'd raised me, loved me, given me a normal childhood in Asheville with book fairs and soccer games and Sunday dinners. I had a good life, I said. Before Daniel, before all of this, I was happy. Then maybe she made the right choice. Maybe she did. We sat in silence, two sisters learning how to be family. What do we do now? Jessica asked. The same question she'd asked 3 weeks ago, but this time it felt different, less desperate, more curious. We build something new, something honest, something ours. No more lies? No more lies, Jessica smiled, real and warm and tired. I like that plan. Later, driving home through the gray afternoon, I thought about everything that had changed, everything I'd lost and everything I'd gained. I'd lost my marriage, my identity. 7 years I could never get back. But I'd gained a sister, a nephew, the truth about who I was and where I came from. And most importantly, I'd gained myself. Not the version Daniel created, not the woman who apologized for failing at something that was never her fault. The real me. The one who chose her own name, her own story, her own future. When I pulled into my driveway, not our driveway anymore, just mine. I sat for a moment before going inside. The house would be empty, quiet, just me and the choices I made going forward. And that felt right. I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app, started typing. Things I know for certain. My name is Abigail. I chose it. It's mine. I have a sister named Jessica and a nephew named Ethan. I am not broken. Never was. I deserve the truth about my own life. I deserve to make my own choices. I deserve better than lies dressed up as protection. I read the list over. Added one more line. I am enough. Exactly as I am. Then I put my phone away, got out of the car, unlocked my front door, and stepped inside to start building the life I'd choose for myself. The woman I'd become wasn't the one Daniel created, or the one my birth mother gave away, or the one my adoptive parents raised. She was all of those things and none of them. She was mine, and that was enough. If you believe no one deserves to be shamed for infertility, hit subscribe. If this story reminded you that no one, not even someone who claims to love you, has the right to rewrite your truth, hit like to stand with everyone who's ever been told they were broken when they weren't. Subscribe if you believe our bodies, our choices, and our stories belong to us alone, not to those who think they know better. And share this with someone who needs to hear that protection without permission is just control, wearing a gentler mask. Because the people we trust most can sometimes steal the most from us. The truth about your life was always yours to know, and no lie told for your own good can ever change that.